on this link. So everybody should go to Brightspace and click on this link. Once you click on the link, you'll be able to see my website where I have material from which I'm going to be teaching you today. So you're going to go to this site. This is my site for what we're going to be covering in the next 2 to 3 classes. So to get there, just go in and click on the link. All right. So next thing you're going to do is we're going to, once you're on the site, make sure you open up Visual Studio Code. In Visual Studio Code, you're going to just set up a folder. So I'm going to go back and forth between the instructions here. So you should be on this page now, and the link is on this page. Then you're going to go in. We're going to be starting this topic of JavaScript. So all of this, what I did was I started off with broad overview, which was Next.js a couple of weeks ago. Then last class that we had, I taught you an overview of React. Now, for you to really be able to use React, you need to understand JavaScript, and we're going to do that now. So what I'm doing is actually drilling down. We started from Next.js, which is at the broadest level. That uses React. And then React uses JavaScript. So we are going from top down. So you have an idea once you finish with JavaScript. So this is at the most detailed level. Once you finish with this one, which will take us a couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks. Once you finish with this one, then you'll understand better how to use React and how to use Next.js. So we are going those things. It's not like these are different things. It's all related, but at this stage, you may not fully understand that they are actually all related. I'm going to start off with what I'm calling this particular, I've posted this lecture. You should all find it. Now, within this, you're going to come down, and I have instructions over here. So this is what I want you to do. Using VS Code, you're going to create a new folder, and I want you to call it JS tutorial, JavaScript tutorial. And in that folder, I want you to create a file called main.js. So this is what I want you to focus on right now. So I would like everybody to do this. So within VS Code, create a folder called JS tutorial. I call mine JavaScript, but it doesn't matter. And then within that, create a file called main.js. And then we are gonna put this code in there. And the way you're gonna put the code in there is simple. You don't have to type any unless you want to. What I'm gonna do is just delete my code, whatever I've got in here. So today you will be working right alongside me, and it's going to be a little bit fast paced. So what you have to do is come in here. So the first program that you're going to be doing is this one. And for this particular program, and not just this one, we're going to be doing a whole bunch of examples today. So all you have to do is click here to copy the code. It will tell you it's been copied. And then we will go into our VS Code and you will simply paste your code in there. Then I'm going to have you run it. So the way you run it is, let me clear this. So the way we are going to run this code is by typing node space main.js. So here's a code and I'm going to enter it. Something went wrong. Let me figure out what went wrong, but something went wrong. And I'm not sure why. So this should not have happened. Let me just delete this thing out and start my terminal again. So you type in basically node and main.js. Something. Oh, okay, I see. My code had a mistake right here. So I realized. So yeah, I was not supposed to have that in there. That's why it's doing it. So give me a second. Let me clear my console and I'm going to run it again. And as long as I don't have an error, which I don't see any, it should work. So the code, all we are doing is saying console.log. So this thing right here is our console. So basically a way of printing or display on the screen. That's what it's saying. Console.log hello world. And I can change it to whatever I want. So if I wanted to say right here, hello, rounding P43. And let's make it 500,000. I'll just change the code. If I run it again. So the way to run it is node space main.js. And if you use your up arrow key, you can bring up old commands that you have typed. So I like to clear it every single time. I like CLEAR. And then to run it, it's node. I don't want to type this over and over again. Node space main.js and it will run. So going back, I'm gonna explain. If anybody has any comments or questions, let me know. Otherwise, yeah, I'm gonna bring back this screen. So anybody that joined late, please make sure you go to Brightspace, announcements, So this announcement that I posted, or go to your email, you should have gotten an email that I have a link here for JavaScript lectures. This link is not just for the makeup class, not just, it's for the makeup class plus what we're going to do this week and next week, at least for 2 weeks. So this link is not just for the makeup class. It is for makeup class plus what we are going to be doing this week and next week. So the makeup class is really right here. I want you to watch this YouTube video. I'm gonna turn this on. All of a sudden, it might make a lot of noise, and I'm gonna stop share and I'll start share in just a second. All right, so I'm gonna open up this YouTube video, and we are not going to be watching it in class. You are supposed to watch it, and you're supposed to watch it up until 2 hours and 43 minutes. So technically, it's 2 hours and 30 minutes, but you're going to go about 13 minutes over. So I'm going to open up this video.
Well, it's not actually required. You can actually just skip the semicolons completely, but most people recommend
And
that
I'm
you put a
intentionally
semicolon just so it's obvious
keeping
what
the
the
volume
variable
very
is.
low. You're
So
going to
here
go,
we
and
are
this video
declaring a
is
variable to be
roughly 3.5 hours long.
and then here we are
You only have to
assigning a
watch
variable. We're
up to,
declaring and assigning in one line.
and I'm muting it now. You only have to watch it up to 2 hours and 43 minutes. So what I want to do, let me go down in here, and I'm going to open up I don't know if where they have it. Give me a second. Okay, the timestamp wasn't opening up for me. I was not missing it. So if you look at this, at 2 hours and 43, which is the timestamp, it goes over this thing called constant keyword. And then right here it starts with something called mutate. You don't have to do that. So just before that, 2 hours and 43 minutes. Okay, so just make sure that you watch this video. This is on your own. I'm gonna close this. So the makeup class is watching the video. Usually when you watch a video, I'll have you do hands-on their exercises, and it will be a good idea for you to do them. But even if you don't, at least watch it. They will explain it slightly differently than me, but that same material I'm covering in this particular lecture. Again, I'm talking the topics. What are the topics? These are the topics that we are covering. So basics, variables, all these things. This is my plan for the next 2 to 3 weeks. Any questions so far? And we're going to get into this in just a second, actual material. All right. So now we're going to get into this actual material and make sure you have VS Code open. And what I'm going to do again, I'm going to delete everything. And we're going to go to the very first one. So we're starting off with the very basics. First thing, create a new folder called JS tutorial. And in that folder, you're going to create a file called main.js. And you can call it whatever you want. I'm just calling it main. You could call it index.js, index, but the important thing is to use the .js extension so that your computer system knows that .js is the extension so that our operating system knows that we're dealing with a JavaScript file. So VS Code that we are using knows you're dealing with a JavaScript file. That's all. So the .js is critical. Name can be anything. So to run it, you're going to type basically node space main.js. So we're going to start off with the first program, and all it does, a console.log statement with these parentheses. Those parentheses are necessary. All it does is it will display the output in the browser's console. And we are not going to be using the browser right now. So it will be instead in VS Code console screen. So this thing right here is the console screen or console portion or the terminal, same thing. So I like using Node. There are many different ways to run JavaScript file, many different ways. So the way I like to do it is we type it in here. We already have Node installed, and we just do node space main.js. And that's one of the ways we can run JavaScript. This is not the only way. And if you watch the video, they're going to show you different ways of doing it. But me, for this class, this is the way I'm going to do it because I think this is the easiest and the simplest. So all you have to do, again, like I said, copy and paste. Once you've copied and pasted it, type in node main.js. And I don't have to type it because, like I said, I use up arrow keys. You'll bring it up and then hit enter. And you should see this display. So if it's working, you don't need to tell me anything. But if you have an issue, it's not working, let me know. Because after this, I'm going to pick up speed. And if it's not working, then you're going to fall behind very quickly. I need to make sure that Node is working. When you type this command, you're able to copy and paste. You have the setup done. But if there's a problem, you got to let me know now because I'm going to be moving fast. All right, so somebody's asking me, they don't know what to paste. So if you go in here, this is the top of the lecture. Let's go to basics. Basics is what is JavaScript. Right underneath that, it says your first program. Right underneath that is what you see in here. So You could copy it like this, or you could type it in, or you can just click copy over here. So if you click copy, these are shortcuts I put in. So this is actually JavaScript. All this that's happening here is JavaScript. So what does JavaScript do? It will take this thing and copy it for you. So you copy it. Then you go back to your VS Code, and I'm going to first delete everything, and now I'm going to paste it. You should know how to paste. Copy and paste. If you don't know, you're in the wrong class. But that's basically it. Once you have copied and pasted it, then make sure this is open, and we have used this many times. I'll clear it, and the only reason, there's no reason to clear it. The only reason I clear it is I don't like having all the stuff on the screen. And you type in node space main.js, and then you run it. So what it's running, this is what we will show you, that what is this code doing. So what this code is doing, line 2 is displaying hello world. Line 3 is displaying. And the important thing for you to know is, why is it displaying it? Because we're using the console.log command. Hopefully I've explained it. Any questions, let me know. But I'm going to move fast after this. Now, every time we go to a new set of code, so we're done with this one. Next, we're going to look at this code, for example. Every time we go, I'm going to just copy it from here. So we're talking about these things called comments. So I'm going to copy it, go into my VS Code. Right here, I'm going to delete this out, and I'm going to paste it. One of the reasons that you can do this is we don't need to save these different versions, because the code is always available to you. This stuff is all available. So anytime you want to see, oh, what is it doing, you can go back. So under normal circumstances, I would maintain my files, like I would call it main1, main2, main3, or hello, and then the next one would be comments, and then the next one would be variables or something. I would give it different name. But because we want to do this fast, we don't want to be setting up new files continuously, you can simply delete and then run. So now that I've pasted this, I'm going to come in here. I'm going to clear it. Now, what is it that we're doing in here? We have double slash. So if you put 2/, that thing is called a comment. A comment is always ignored. So I'm going to say, so you can write regular English, whatever you want. But a comment, the computer ignores it. As soon as it sees 2/, the computer says, let me ignore it. This is for human use. And there are two styles of comment. So one is double slash, And that's what we call a single line comment. And the second one is slash asterisk, and then you end it with asterisk forward slash. And you use this for multiple line comments. And so when you do something like this, the computer is going to just ignore these lines. This is the only thing the computer will actually do. But after that, you can still put another comment and this will get ignored. So what the computer is going to do is assign this value to this. So let me see what happens if I run it. I am thinking I'm going to see 100,000. Let's see what happens. I see nothing. And it's not a mistake. The reason I see nothing is not that the computer did not assign the value, but I did not say I want this value printed. So if I want it printed, I would say console.log revenue. So if I say console.log revenue, and now I run it one more time, it will now print the 100,000. So it did assign the value in line 10. Line 10 is the only thing it did originally. But nothing will display because I wasn't doing a console.log. Now in my notes, we get to variables. So if you don't understand variable, don't worry. That's what we're going to be doing next. So variable is like a label that you may use to store data. So a good example would be if I'm using an Excel spreadsheet, I want to say age, and I'm going to say 15. Then I want to say account balance. And let's just say, let me uh, just say $475.36. Who's this about? Name John Doe. Is account active? You see me using these underscores. That's a computer way of doing things. In Excel, you would simply say is account active? True. Here, you would typically do account balance. So it's a label that we are assigning, and in JavaScript, you cannot have a space in the names. So the way we would typically assign it, of a label, is by using what's called camel casing. So there are two ways to name variables. And one way is what we call camel. I think it's camel, CMEL casing. The other one is what we call snake casing. And there's also another one. I said two ways, but there's also Pascal casing. And what I'm going to do is quickly generate, explain the difference between difference between variable naming conventions like camel, casing, etc. Hopefully it will generate something good. Yeah, I like this. And I'm going to actually copy it. Ignore what I'm doing. I'm going to go to my site and I'm just going to add it so you guys will have access to it instantly. Just bear with me because I did not do this earlier. So I want to make sure that this gets formatted properly. Actually, I could have done this. Convert this into HTML. So I will post this up there, but main thing, while it's doing this, let me go right here and explain the different casings. So in JavaScript, as it mentions in here, the choice of how you the convention you use, it depends on language. You can use anything you want in any language, pretty much. But generally, JavaScript uses what is called camel casing. Okay. And it uses camel casing for variables, and it uses what's called Pascal casing for classes. So this is what we are interested in, these two. So what is camel casing and Pascal casing? So let's start off with camel casing. When we're talking about camel casing, the very first letter is small caps. So if I want to say first name, we cannot put a space in between. So what we do is say first, F is small capital, N is then capitalized. So this is an example of camel casing. Another one, calculate total amount. So the first word is always in small caps. The second word is capitalized. The third word, the fourth word, the fifth word, they will all be capitalized. So this is what we use. Lower camel casing. Now, there's in JavaScript, and we're not going to do this much at this point. We also use what's called camel casing and Pascal casing. And in Pascal casing, the first letter is capitalized, the second one for the word is capitalized, so on and so forth. Technically, you can do whatever you want, but we follow a certain convention because other programmers in that same language follow a convention. So just when I'm looking at your code, I'll know if I look at something like this, you mean it's a variable. If you were doing this, I will know it's a class, something called a class, and you don't need to worry about that right now. So if I saw this in your code, instantly I know it's a class. And then we also have a third type that we use, which is all uppercase. I'm not sure if, yeah, right here, example. So max value. So you would use this also in JavaScript, and you'd use this typically when we have something called constant. So I'm going to explain all of these things, and I'll update the code with this stuff, this description. So, and the reason basically it's called camel case or snake casing. So something like this. This is snake casing. So it's like a snaking words together using an underscore. And camels have a hump. So that's what we're doing here. Hump over here, a hump over here. That sort of, there is something called kebab casing where you use a hyphen. This is not very common to do. And often at times you don't want to use a hyphen because a hyphen could be confused with a minus sign. So typically you don't want to do kebab casing. Yes, it is used in certain places, but typically it's not used in a programming language because then you would not be able to differentiate between a minus and a hyphen. But something where there's no programming involved, like HTML, it's not really programming. You cannot subtract things. There, it may be used. So I'll post something like this a little bit later on. I'm actually gonna let me undo this for right now. So I can set it up properly. And I'm gonna open my JavaScript folder. Okay. So here we define a variable and we use the keyword var in front of it. Var is used to indicate it's a variable. However, we use the different ways of declaring the variable. So what I just talked about, which I'm going to put in here, is how you would name the variable. Basically, we use camel casing or Pascal casing. But for right now, everything you're going to be doing is going to be camel casing. You're not going to worry about Pascal casing. And the other one, which was that screaming case, we will be using this also, okay? And again, when we talk about constants, we use this. And again, we'll come back and I'll explain. The var keyword, even though I'm using it in my code, is nowadays considered really bad. You don't want to do that, okay? So the only reason we are mentioning it is that if you look up something, old code, it may use var. But nowadays, I think almost like for the last 10 years, the recommendation is never to use the var keyword. So this is called a keyword, what you're using in programming. If they tell you not to use the var keyword, and it has to do with something called scope, which we will learn much later on, not even right now. So because of the scope, this can create a lot of problems. So this is old style. You do not want to use it in your code. Now, the modern way to do everything is to use the let keyword or the constant keyword. So when you use let, value can change. If you use const, value remains fixed. And it will make sense in just a few minutes. But these two are much better way of doing it because something called scope and these keywords have what's called a block scope. It basically helps avoid errors. This can introduce lots of errors if you're not careful. So yes, there are three ways to declare variables. I really don't even want you to do var unless I specifically say what's the bad way of doing it, then you'll tell me var. So let's go to this code and I'm going to copy it and then we'll go through it. And I want you to see everything we're doing now coming together. Okay. For starters, we're going to use the old way of doing things. And if I just run it right now, so I'm going to go in here, I'm going to clear it, I'm going to run it. Nothing happens. Why is nothing happening? Because we are not outputting anything. We did not do console.log anywhere. So the result is nothing is outputted. The computer is doing these things behind the scenes, but it's not displaying anything. Hopefully that makes sense. Anytime you want to display something, you must use either console.log or some other way of displaying. There are many different ways of displaying. This is an annoying way of displaying, but I'll show you how I can do something. Actually, let me hold off. I don't want to confuse you guys at this point. So let me just stick with what I have here. So the very first thing I'm going to do is, we've already seen you can use the var keyword, and then once you use it, all you have to do is console dot log it to see it in action. So now if I run it, it should print 5,000. Okay. The let keyword is pretty much like the var keyword. So, but the main difference is what we call scope. And this part is a little bit hard for me to explain to you at this stage. So there is a difference. It's a really critical difference because of something called scope. So you can accidentally end up changing things very easily if you're using this var. So that's why we're using let, but it will do exactly the same thing for all practical purposes right now. So if I say console.log, and then I'm going to just say monthly revenue, and I run it. And when I run it, I like to first clear and then run. So it's giving me 5,000 from right here, and then 12,000 from right here. Now, I can do something like this. New. Let me do this. Monthly revenue is 17,000. Now I put a semicolon at the end. That's an old way of doing things. Do you have to put a semicolon? Answer is no. People do it for clarity to tell you that, oh, it's the end of the line. But virtually nowadays, there is no reason to put a semicolon. Okay, very few situations where you want to use a semicolon. So my coding style is, I am not going to put a semicolon. You can put a semicolon, but it's not necessary. So you see, I just started removing these semicolons. You can do that. Semicolon just means it's the end of the line. But is it necessary? Answer is no. So in here, I said monthly revenue. I changed it from 12 to 17, and I'm going to display it a second time. I'll clear everything, and then I'm going to run it. So you'll see I got 5,000, then I got 12,000 and 17,000, because that's basically the values. So the let keywords allows us to change this. So when I'm saying over here, can update, I'm saying This is the new updated value. Okay. I can change it. I change this value by reassigning it. Any questions so far? Please let me know before I go to the next one, which is to explain constant. All right, so let's go to the next one. Now I have a constant. I'm not using the var keyword or the let, I'm using constant. And constants are typically written in this format, all uppercase. Do you have to do that? Answer is no. I could do constant and I can do, let's just say, sales tax rate is 0.12. I can do that. That is a valid constant. So why will I not do that? Because down the road, imagine you have lots of code in here. Somewhere in here, now I say sales tax rate is 0.15. Now I'm looking at this. I don't see it in those in the all caps. So I'm thinking it's a variable, but it's not a variable. It's actually a constant. So if I just run this code and I'm going to clear it and then run it, I've got a problem. I made a mistake. And this is a good mistake because the node.js is compiling it, basically running it. When it's running it, it identifies a mistake. Sales tax rate is now 15%, 0.15. And it's saying, no, you cannot do that. You're trying to assign to constant variable. So it's warning us, it's telling us. So we do this capitalization for the benefit of humans. The computer doesn't care, it will detect it. But if I know that it's written as tax rate, let's say, I'm just going to use now. When you see it in all caps, a JavaScript programmer will know right away this is a constant, and therefore he or she will not try to do this. So you declare constants and then you use them. So for example, I may want I want to use this 7% rate. So I'm going to do it this. Console.log. So what do I want to display? I want to display actual tax. So I'm going to enter an amount like 100, multiply that by the sales tax rate. And I can do that in parentheses like that. Different ways of doing it, but this is one way of doing it. So instead of seeing 0.07, I should see something different. So I'm going to, again, clear my display and then execute this code. Okay, so you'll notice it did give me 100 times 0.07. It did give me 7, but it added a bunch of like a tiny value. And this is called a floating point error. This does end up happening in calculations because if again we were doing it as humans, we would know exactly this is supposed to be exactly $7 or 7, not 0.0000. And this is a floating point error. There are ways to fix it, but for now, just be aware, nothing wrong with it. And this is how you would typically use it. So the way I would in real life do it is I would say sale amount is equal to, and see, sale amount now is a variable. It can keep on changing. So now I'll just say sale amount is equal to $235. And we never put a dollar sign. We don't want to do that. That's wrong. You never want to say, oh, it's, let's say this was 2035. You never want to put a comma in there. That's wrong. You always will write the values like this. So let's say the sale amount is, let's make it 2,100. No commas, no dollar signs, nothing. And this. So now you know, if I'm programming it, I would say something like this. Sales tax is equal to, and I'm just gonna say sale amount times tax rate. Now, I declared a new variable. And here I'm declaring a new variable. And right here, I'm going to display them. But notice I'm declaring these new variables. without using any keyword in front of it. So I'm gonna delete some of this stuff out so that it doesn't create any confusion. Okay, so I have a constant. I did not put a var, let, anything in front of a constant. I am just declaring it without saying anything. Will that work? Let's clear it. Or am I going to get an error of some type? It seemed to work. So why not just do this all the time? So I'll explain these things in a little bit more detail once we come back. So it's about 7:32, 33, about 10 to 12-minute break. Actually, let's meet at 7:45. So I'm going to put this in here as a comment. Class continues at 7:45 p.m. So about a 10-minute break, and we'll continue. All right. So this is all the code there is right now because I deleted the other stuff out. You can see from lines 1 through 7. All right, so we'll continue. Now, when we let off, I said, and I showed you this example. And I said, well, I really did not have to use var or let or const. Here, I just declared a variable and it works. I mean, I didn't have any problems. So why don't we do that? So in my notes, I only mentioned 3, but there is a 4th way, which is you don't use any keyword at all. Now, as I was saying, scope, this is function, block, block. If you don't use any keyword at all, it becomes what's called as a global scope. which is, I told you this was bad. Global is the worst. And so while it is technically, theoretically possible to do something like this, it's a very, very bad way of programming. So you can do this. Let sales amount equal. That's one way of declaring a variable. You can also do let sales tax. And I want to explain the difference. Here I am creating a variable, or declaring is the proper term. I'm declaring a variable and assigning it value. These are two things: declare and assign. And I am also putting things in my notes in here. So for November 17th, we are basically working on the JS tutorial site, and that stuff that I had from Google, I pasted it in here, and I'll go back and I'll put it on to my website. So I want you to understand the difference between declaring a variable versus assigning value to a variable. It can done in one step or two, depending on needs. Okay, so I just showed you an example here. I declared the variable, and here I declared and assigned a value. In one step. And this is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. And this is fine. And it depends on needs. So there are times when you want to declare the variable and you'll use it later on, and that's fine. Or you want to use it right away. So it doesn't matter. Both are equally valid. And there is nothing wrong. Like, I'm not going to do this. Let's sales tax. Once it's been declared, you do not need to do this every single time. This is a bad thing. I declared it. Now I'm saying I'm declaring it again. You can't do that. You see those red squiggly lines? It's saying it's a bad thing. You don't do that. So saying this is the right way of doing things, but never declaring it to begin with. This is never declaring it. So the very first time I'm using sales tax, I don't put a var or a let or a const in front of it. That's a bad thing. This is not how you're supposed to do that. So you want to make sure that, and I am going to do it the right way now. The easiest thing is just remember, you are not going to use anything other const and let. And once a variable has been declared and you're assigning it a value later on, then you don't put another let, only the first time around. And let me show you what happens if I declare a constant, but I do not assign it a value. I want to assign it later on. So can I do that? So const tax rate is, and then I will say tax rate is 0.07. Can I do that? You see that red squiggly line? That's telling me I'm making a mistake. So you cannot do that with constants. Anything which is a constant, you must define it right away. You must assign it a value right away. So you must declare constants. Must. Be declared and assigned a value in one step. For constants, const keyword, you must declare and assign a value in one step. You are not, this is something critical, a big difference. So I want you to always use these and never declare. Okay, let me not say never declare, but if you declare a variable without using a key, using var, let, or const keyword, it becomes global in scope, which is a very bad thing and can introduce bugs that may be difficult to identify. So even though it will work, no, you don't want to do that. So I'm adding more stuff in here. So hopefully it's making sense. You let is used for variables, const is used for what we call constants. So you understand, at least constant means you're not going to change the value of it. It doesn't make sense to change it. So in real life, what would be common examples of constants? One of the most famous constants is the value of pi. So if I was going to be declaring const pi is equal to 3.14, you know that the value of pi is never going to change. So you would declare it. Also, I may have something where I'm gonna go in here, pull up something. What are HTML color codes? And I'm gonna go to this site. So in HTML, there are different ways that you can define color. And you can use hex color codes, RGB, a bunch of different ways. So imagine this is the color that I want. It has this value. So I'm going to select a color that I like, and then you will see it here. Or let me just go with a very bright color. Or just a tinge. Again, doesn't matter what color value I select. But now it has a value associated with it. That's this value. So what I want to do, it was copied to my clipboard. So I may have const. And now I'm going to say primary color is equal to, and I want to put this value, and I'm going to put this now in quotes because otherwise it doesn't know what I'm talking about. So primary color, and in here I will say my favorite shade of red. So if I'm developing a website, I have a theme. So I may have something like primary color, or I want to define 6. And here I want to put some sort of a let's do green color. Const warning is equal to orange. Orange dash, I want it to be yellow color. And then I may have const error is equal to, and here I'll have some red color. Again, I'm just giving you an example how you would be using these things in computer program. So you would put these values in, and you don't want somebody accidentally changing the value, the color value of success. So, and again, you could even define it like this: success color. I would recommend doing that. So it's easy to understand the name of the variable. So once you define it, you want it to remain consistent throughout your program. And this is one way you do it. You don't want someone accidentally changing the these colors. And this way, it's easy for us to use them in our actual code without having to look up these values all the time. So again, I wanted to use this as a primary color, and then I could do, again, this is not a real code, so I could do something like this, say, uh, menu background color is equal to primary color. Something like that. And again, the way you would normally do this would be something like this. The menu background color is equal to my primary color. And if somebody wants to change it, so I would add another thing. Again, I'm just doing things in English right now. If the user selects a dark theme, then menu primary color is this one. Else, if the user selects a light theme, then its menu background color is, and I'm just making it up right now, light primary color. Dark primary color. And of course, I haven't declared the variable over here. So maybe I'll do something like this. Dark primary color is equal to, and I defined it. And then I would have to define my light primary color. And I'll just change the value a little bit over here by going in here. So I want to use this with a dark theme, and then if it's a light theme, maybe I want to use this one. So I'll copy this value and put that in here. And I'll get rid of these comments. And I'm going to get rid of this stuff also. Just sort of, you can see things that I'm doing. Okay. Hopefully it's making sense why you would use a constant. So if you do need to change it, yes, it's not like you cannot change it, but it has to be done by the programmer, not by the user. In anywhere you want, you can reassign it. So the basic difference is, it's not that you cannot change it. As a programmer, you can change the value of the constant if you want. You just cannot reassign it. So what does that mean? Let me go to my code. As a programmer, I can change this value right here. I can make it BA777. I'm making just, can I do that? Yeah, I can. Whatever I want to do, I'm the programmer. But once a value has been assigned, I cannot change it somewhere else in the code. I cannot come in here and now say light primary color is, and I'll just put a whole bunch of stuff in here. That I cannot do. If I want to change it, I gotta go back to where I had declared it. I can go in there and change it. So when we are saying constant is a value that doesn't change, it basically just means that it doesn't change after it has been assigned a value. So it does not change after a value has been assigned to it. This is to avoid introducing errors or bugs accidentally. Okay, so I'm hoping that you understand when I'm saying these different things, what they mean. When I tell you no, it cannot be changed. Yes, you as a programmer can change it, but no, you cannot do a redefining once something has been defined. All right, so I'm going to move on. Any questions so far? And let me get rid of stuff that I don't need. Um, okay, so we just finished this portion. Now we are at 7 data types. So let me copy that. And what I'm going to do, because I want to be able to show you everything, I'm going to delete my terminal window for now. So it's all, you can see all of it. So if you declare a variable, but you have not assigned it a value, so there's nothing wrong in doing this. Nothing wrong. But you have not assigned it a value. And its value is what we call undefined. This almost seems the same as what we call null, but it's not. So there is a difference between undefined and null, which is yet different from what we call empty. They're like different concepts, and I will go through these and try to explain them to you. So these are the more difficult concepts. So I'm going to start off with the easy ones. So let's start at number 5 here. That's the easy one to understand. I define let balance is equal to 5,000. This is a number data type. How do I know? Because this is a number, there's no quotation around it. If there was a quotation around it, we call that a string, text data. But because there is no quotation around it and it looks like a number, this looks like a number, well, JavaScript automatically knows it's a number or a numeric data type. So we have different data types and they make a difference. So you need to know what they are. Numeric, string, and I'm going to open up now just another one. You don't need to do it, but I'm going to do it. I'll create a file called index.js. I can call it whatever I want. I'm just creating a new file because I want to show you. So I say let age equals, and I'll just say 10. So it is a number, but I am entering it as if it's a string. And then I'm going to say let new age equal age plus 1. And then I'll say console.log new age. And now I'll run it. So I'm going to open up my terminal. And I'm using index now, so I'll just change it. So the new age is 101. It's not 11. And here is a potential problem that you have to be aware of. How JavaScript adds. If it looks at it and it says this is a string because it's surrounded by quotes, it thinks you want to add a string 10 plus that number. So what it's doing is giving you 10 plus 1, and you get 101. So imagine I had done this. Let first name equals John. It's a string. Let last name equal Doe. That's a string. Can you add two strings together? Console dot log first name plus last name. And I don't want all of this code to appear. Like, I don't want to delete it, but I just want to comment it out. So what I am going to do is highlight it. Then I use Control and slash. And in VS Code, it will comment those lines for you quickly. I don't have to go each time. And give me 1 second. I don't have to go to each line and comment it by putting double slash. If this is a VS Code shortcut, it works in a toggle manner, which means I can toggle and put comments, or if I highlight it and I do Control slash, I'll uncomment it. Comment, uncomment, comment, uncomment. So in Windows, you use the Control key, and I'm assuming on Mac should be using the Command key along with the / key, which is where the question mark is. So for now, I want to comment it. By commenting it, that code is not going to run. And I want to just see what happens if I run this code. Node index.js and see what happens. And it's going to add it together. John Doe. But doesn't put a space because I did not tell it to put a space. If I want to put a space, I can do something like this. Empty. This is called empty string. And it's just empty. There's nothing in there, but it will put a space for me. So now if I run it, it shows John space Doe. So now I am adding. The proper term is concatenating, but it's adding 3 strings together. This is a string, this is a string, this is a string. And it works. It doesn't work in all programming languages, but it works in JavaScript. So I'm going to go back to my main.js. So null is not really the same thing as empty. Yeah, it has a meaning of its own. It's the equivalent to don't assign any value to it, but it's not unassigned. Again, it's going to be difficult for you to understand at this particular point in time. So these two, I don't want you to worry too much about it, okay? Because no value assigned. It's now intentionally empty. And then, like I said, empty is not really empty, because what if I had done this? Let, and I'm going to comment this one out. Let closed account equals. This is also empty, but it's a little bit different. It's an empty string. So the meaning of what is empty is a little bit complex. So I do not want you to worry too much about the first two or even the third one at this particular point in time. It's a little bit more advanced. So what is it that I really want you to know? I want you to focus on understanding what is Boolean, string, and number. Symbol, don't worry about it. Same thing with something called objects. We'll worry about it later on. So you only need to worry about three types: numeric, which is a number, and it can be an integer or a decimal number; a string, which can be made up of letters and numbers. It can be like that. It could be empty. That's also a valid string. Or it could have a bunch of spaces in it. That's also fine. And the last type right here is Boolean. Boolean will be either a value of true or false. And Excel also has a Boolean value. Is account active? You see this true? It became capital. That is saying it's a Boolean value of true. So that's fine as well. Boolean just has the value of true or false. So these three you really should know. The others you don't need to worry too much about. Questions, let me know. So I was asked, is this material going to be on exam 2 or final exam? Answer is both. Why? Again, whatever I'm teaching you guys, uh, it's even though the exams are not technically cumulative, they are all cumulative because, for example, on the final, you need to know all of this stuff plus the stuff that we have done with React and Next.js. So again, when we're going to the next exam and the final, we're going to need all of these things. We are not done yet. Any question about the material? All right, so I'm going to erase this. And I'm also going to just get rid of this file. I don't want to have extra files around. And I'm going to clear this. I'm not going to go through these, and I'm going to go to the next one, operations. Now, I'm going to digress a little bit from the topic and explain something because we just finished discussing data types. It's very easy in JavaScript to change the type of a value. So I'm going to start like this. Let A equal to 10. And now I can change the value of age is equal to 17. Console.log age. And I think you all know what the age will be. Age is 17. So it's a variable that I define, which means with a let, that means, yeah, I can reassign it a value. But not only can I reassign it a value, here it was string. Now I implicitly change it to a number. And that is permitted because JavaScript is a dynamically typed language. It makes it easy to program for beginners, but it can also introduce errors. For uh, for larger projects, we typically use something, we typically use TypeScript, which is essentially JavaScript, but statically typed. Statically typed. That means that you cannot change the data type when assigning a value. In statically typed languages, you can change the value as long as it is of the same data type as original. May sound a little bit confusing, but you saw me do this right here. I declared a variable called age, and then I said age is equal to 17. I dynamically, implicitly, so this is basically I dynamically change it to a number. So I don't want you guys doing this, but just watch what I'm doing. Do not do this. Just watch because you'll fall behind. I'm going to open up one of my older projects. And I'm just trying to see. I think this is when we did just before 24th or 29th. I'm just looking to see. I'm looking for a specific fault. Oh, yeah, it might have been in this one. I sorry, don't remember exactly which one it was, but probably this one. Yeah, okay. So we're good. This is the Next.js project that we worked on a couple of weeks ago, and I had just set something very basic up with you guys. But the important thing is, and that in this one, and if you look at files, I'm using something called a .tsx extension. And you may not have it because I sometimes prepare lecture material that I don't go over in class. That's why I said the important thing is not for you to do anything at this particular point in time, but just watch what I'm doing. So in here, if you can just see, I have a file with a .js extension. That means I'm using JavaScript for this one. And most of my files have a .ts extension. That means I'm using a TypeScript. So TypeScript is essentially identical to JavaScript, and right now you can see it's telling us no problems. But if I try to type that same type of a code that we had before, let age equal to 10. Okay. So it's giving me an error right now because it's saying, hey, if you're not gonna reassign it, use const instead. It's warning me because I'm right now in a Next.js project and I have the warnings and things like that turned on. So when we were creating those projects, Okay, so I may need to zoom out a bit. So when we were creating those projects, remember I told you to use TypeScript, not JavaScript, okay? And with TypeScript, we ended up basically getting statically typed language, which again will make sense to you in a few minutes, hopefully. So, all right, let age is equal to 10, and then I go and I say age is equal to, I'm going to make it 11 now. Okay. So it's saying age is assigned a value, but it's never used because it wants me to do something with age. So I'm going to put down console dot log age. And now it's saying no problems in my code. So I can, this is again TypeScript that we're dealing with, which is almost identical to JavaScript. I'm typing the same code. So I'm saying age is 10, then I'm saying age is 11. But because I am keeping it of the same TypeScript type, that's the keyword, I can do this. But if I try to do this, age is 11. Now I've got a problem because this is type, again emphasizing type. It says number is not assignable to string. So it's saying you are doing something wrong. First you were using a string, now you're using a number. And it's giving me an error. If I try to run it, I'm going to have a problem. So me, again, this is not really part of my code, so I'm going to just delete this. But when I was doing this, I told you guys, select TypeScript, but I was using the word JavaScript. This is why. Let me go back to my project. So um, okay, so this code will work here because I'm using JavaScript. But as we proceed, once you've learned a little bit of JavaScript, then I will not be using .js extension. Once you understand JavaScript, then I will use TypeScript in React, which is used in Next. And you call it Next JS for JavaScript, but you really use TypeScript in Next.js. You can use JavaScript, but nowadays everybody is virtually using TypeScript. So the history of give me a quick history of Java script, script, and I want, cannot give me an AI view, which is what I wanted. Let me go to DeepSeek, give me a very brief history of JavaScript. The explain how it was created, how and why. And it's somewhat interesting how JavaScript became. All right. So I'm going to just explain this a little bit because when we start going through it, what we do, why I said don't use var, why I said it works without any keyword when you're declaring a variable, but don't do that. Well, this is because of the history of JavaScript. Okay, when it was created, this is in early 1990s. Internet as we know basically was born around 1993, 92, and no, it did exist from 1960s. But what you're sort of seeing now, the origins of it, when it became popular, was around 1992. So at that time, Bill Clinton was elected president, and they used to call it at that time information superhighway. So it was created, or became popular just around 1992 or so. But the web was entirely static. Static means it was based on HTML and some type of CSS. So you would have colors and you had pure HTML, nothing else. So you cannot, this is equivalent to the first exam, the way I had you create your site. I told you just HTML and CSS. And that's what's called a static site. It doesn't do anything, you can't interact with it. Even this site that I created right here is a little bit more interactive because you can at least copy. Imagine I did not allow you to copy, just posted stuff. So like this document that I have for you to look at is on the web. You cannot change it. This is an example of static site. So when internet basically started in the early 90s, you had what we call a static site. There was no way to interact. So, and to allow some level of interaction, a company called Netscape, and again, the whole history with it, they decided to try to make it a little more dynamic and interactive. So, a good example is on my site right here that I can click copy. It's a little bit dynamic. This, as soon as I click copy, watch what happens to the button. First, when I hover over it, obviously it's changing, but I could have done that with just CSS. But now if I click copy, it changed from copy to copied. And not only that, it's put this information in the console's memory so we could paste it. So this is an example of a little bit of interactivity. And this was done through JavaScript. This language was created in 10 days by one person. Okay. So Netscape had a browser similar to Chrome. They wanted him to create we're not even using the word programming language. We're using the term scripting language. It wasn't meant to be a proper programming language. A scripting language just to make the browser a little bit more interactive. So the goal was to create a language that's very easy for web designers. Who were web designers? They were not programmers. Programmers did not sit down and design things on the web. These are people. So where you are right now with your knowledge of HTML and CSS, that's the max knowledge anybody had. These are web designers. They were not ready for a complicated, sophisticated programming language, and many already existed at that time. And for amateur programmers to use, it's easy, quickly get going. For adding simple interactivity, like validating a form, somebody enters their email, but they don't add that @ symbol, well, we can catch it. So validating a form. Or it was very popular in early 90s. You would have animations similar to the memes that you see, but much more annoying at that time. So first, this guy had only 10 days to create this language. He was under intense time pressure. Okay. And what was going on is Netscape, this company was at browser war. Browser war is still going on now between Microsoft. They try to push their Edge browser all the time on you, Chrome. Everybody has their own browser. It was going on in early 90s. Netscape was the leader. And Microsoft was trying to compete with Netscape. So they created this first version of the language in 10 days. He was trying to keep it very simple. It wasn't meant to be a programming language. It was meant to be a scripting language. It wasn't meant for serious programmers. It was basically for web designers, like somebody who knows graphic designing, or for amateurs. That was the audience. So when he was developing it, there was a real solid programming language called Java. He made it look similar to Java. Java was and is a serious programming language. So he made it look similar to Java, and because it looked like that, and it was a scripting language. Scripting is not programming. I don't want to digress too much, but it's meant to be something very simple. They ended up calling it JavaScript. Java was already very popular, and it was, um, that particular reason. So the problem was that once Netscape had this, and Microsoft is competing with Netscape, Microsoft decided to also use JavaScript in its own browser. So once this came in, Netscape had it, then Microsoft decided, hey, we are going to use JavaScript in our browser. And then other companies, whoever was competing, they were competing with Netscape and Microsoft, like Google. They decided, we are also going to use JavaScript. So it wasn't that this was the best language out there or anybody had thought through. It just became popular because this was the leader, Netscape. They're using it. So now Microsoft, when they come in, they said, we are going to use it. Then later on, Google came in. They said, Well, we have to compete with, and so they all ended up basically copying it. So over the years from 1995, it kept on changing, kept on changing. But about 10 years ago, they brought this in, the ES6. And this is what is really used right now. And so they've made modifications a couple of times. And this is where we are right now. So some of the things that I tell you, like when I go into the code and I'm saying, don't do this, it's because of backward compatibility. It was done very quickly. It wasn't. Now we are using it for every sophisticated application on the web. So to be able to do that, the original language no longer meets the needs of today. So things like using no keyword here, that was fine when you are writing a very small little program. But now we have a very sophisticated environment. Every single site virtually is using JavaScript right now because that's the only language browsers understand. So when I said we are using TypeScript, what happens is TypeScript is converted into JavaScript and then the browser uses it. Okay, so even when we write the code in TypeScript, there'll be one extra step. It will first convert from TypeScript to JavaScript, and then it will be run in the browser. But in the browser, whatever you see, whether you're looking at your textbook, whether you are looking at a hospital site, whether you're playing a video game, everything is getting converted into JavaScript. That's the only way it will work in the browser. So I can write a video game in a different language, and that language will ultimately end up getting converted, and it's done in an automated way back into JavaScript. So this is why I am introducing this and teaching this to you, so that you're using something that's being used on the web extensively, and that's why I introduced this concept of the dynamic versus static. So going back in here, we're gonna next talk about operators. And operators are fairly simple. I'm not gonna spend too much time on it. You've already seen me use them. You should know these things already. This is how you add things, plus. This is how you subtract things. For multiplication, we always use asterisk. We do not use the X symbol, but I think by now everybody knows that. I think even probably on my calculator, they're probably using asterisk. I'm not sure. No, they're using X. But you have seen asterisk all the time because in Excel, if I want to say 5 and 7, I want to enter a formula, 5 times 7, right? You guys are used to asterisk already, and that gives us 35. So I'm going to be quick about it. You always use asterisk, not an X. Division, you know how it works. So we also have some strange looking computation, and that's the one I want to focus on. This one right here. So I'm going to highlight this and bring it into my code. So how you calculate the remainder, and I'm going to change this value to just 10, it will give us the same answer. So if I did 10, which is the invoice num divided by 3, divided, and I'm going to run it and see 10 divided by 3 should be 3 point, I guess 33333, but let's see what happens. Oh, I forgot, this was unintentional. Console.log, and I'm gonna just say answer, and what I mean by answer is, let me just call it answer. So I got 3.33333. That's good. But sometimes I don't want the full value. I just want to know what is the remainder. So for remainder, we use the percent symbol. This is, I don't know why. They just decided that's what they were going to do. And this is very common in other programming languages as well. So if I now run it, I'll get 1. So if you use the remainder is calculated directly through this. And we are not in accounting going to use this too frequently. We don't typically need to know the remainder of a number. So 10 divided by 3, 3 times 3 is 9, and the remainder is 10 minus 9, 1. But just be aware, more important is be aware, percent does not mean percent. Okay? We're not saying here something like 10% 3. That's not what this is. All right. We're going to go just a few more minutes. I only gave one break today, so we can finish early. You have some operators. These are also operators, but these are not what I call traditional math operators, which we are calling compound operators, but these are what's called assignment operators. So to understand the concept of assignment, let's go back in here. I'm not copying this code yet. So I'm just going to say, let answer equal 3. Now, in programming, you can do this. Answer is equal to answer plus any number. Let's just say 7. This is the new value of answer is the old value of answer plus 7. And another way of saying this is, and this is the origin of the let keyword, let the new value of answer be the old value of answer plus 7. So what we are doing here, this is an assignment. We are assigning it a value. This is not an algebraic equation. Need to understand that. We are not saying solve for answer, which might be x is equal to x plus 1. That doesn't even make any sense in algebra. How can x equal x plus 7 or x plus... No. We are not saying that. We are not saying solve for answer. We are saying the new value of answer is this. So when you see this, you must not think in terms of algebra. It has a different meaning, and all it's doing is saying the new value is this. Now, there is a shortcut way of doing the same thing. So if you look up here, balance is equal to balance equal. So in programming, we do something like this all the time. Assignment is done all the time. So this is the same as saying I just made a mistake. So what I'm going to do is comment this out. And let me see what the result will be. Result is 10. So why is it 10? I started off with 3. Then I said answer is equal to, and this plus equal really means it's a shortcut for this. So it's weird looking, but because you do this incrementing, this is one of those things that you do this so frequently, something like this, that in most languages, this shortcut is available to you. You can use either or, unless I tell you specifically, but you need to understand what it means, because let's say I give you a multiple choice question and I say, show me imagine I show you this in a multiple choice format. And let me just add answer a so this is wrong the way I have it here. This would be the correct way of doing it. So I'm going to just know that if you're trying to increment original value by 7, this is how you would do it, not this. So at that level, but you'll see me using this all the time in our programming. Okay, so we are gonna end the class here, and I will see you next week. Please watch the video. It's going to explain whatever I have gone through in a different way, different examples, different things. But that is something that I recommend doing to get ready. And you really need this when you're going to be doing your final project at that time, final exam, which is in about a month or so. By that time, you need to really know this stuff. That's why for the video, you have a couple of weeks to watch. But on a smaller scale, when you're doing your second exam, you'll have some stuff which you need to do with this to make the sites interactive. All right, I'm going to end here. Any questions? Stay, otherwise, you can disconnect.